just now tuning in, all right, we just listened to a fantastic 2-minute segment by Steve Jobs explaining how to create great collaboration. And as we talked about earlier, the things that he pointed out in it is you have to have certain roles, you have to have a structure of within your organization in order for a great collaboration to happen, and you have to have a certain attitude. Now, what is that attitude? We'll break it down in a second. All right, you got to have a certain goal and a mindset as to what collaboration looks like, and you have to have well-facilitated meetings. All right, so let's go ahead and drill down. What does it mean by roles? Okay, if you recall, he points out on at the very beginning, at the outset of the video, he makes this comment. Listen to this.
One person's in charge of iPhone OS software. One person's in charge of Mac hardware. One person's in charge of iPhone hardware engineering. Another person's in charge of worldwide marketing. Another person's in charge of operations. We're organized like a startup.
All right, so the first thing is recognizing that when he spoke about people having clear, defined roles, is he knew everyone knows who is what. And one of the things that companies are most challenged with is that they don't want to define that or have that in a very clearly updated organizational chart. And that creates an incredible amount of problems. And the reason being is because it confuses communication. Somebody calls the owner or somebody talks to a manager and says, hey, look, I got to talk to you about such and such project or such and such person. And that person answers with, well, hey, have you talked to Lori? Okay, and says, yeah, but I don't think Lori is in that team. I don't think he's responsible. Yeah, but she knows about that. Go talk to Lori. And see, right there's a disagreement as to lines of protocol and who's involved in what because there's no clear organizational chart. All right, but as you'll notice throughout his conversation, he refers to teams. We'll talk about it in just a second as to how you take an organizational chart and you break it up into teams, and those teams have to be clearly well defined so that people know go that way or go this way. So in order to create great collaboration, you have to have a good organizational chart. Now, if you're a manager and you have a department and your company does not have a clear defined organizational chart, you're going to have to draw it out and kind of figure it out on your own, because you still got to go to the right people and you got to make sure it's well understood who does what and who is the leader in what area. And at least within your department, you have to have a very well defined org chart below you so that you can give it to your people and say, all right, here's who sits at these seats, here's the positions, here's who gives account to whom, and you have to define that, as Steve Jobs says. Without that level of direction, then collaboration falls apart. All right, let's go to the next point. All right, the next point is the whole concept that we all fight against, and that is when he points this out, he says this, okay, about we need to meet on a regular basis.
We're the biggest startup on the planet.
Here it is.
And we all meet for 3 hours once a week, and we talk about everything we're doing, the whole business.
3 hours. Okay, see right here, folks hear this, and it's like, what do you mean meet for 3 hours? Well, you have to break it up. The executives at the top have to meet for 3 hours. I have seen small companies, mid-sized companies, and large companies try to avoid this like the plague, and it doesn't work. Why? Because decisions have to go somewhere in order to be effective. And when you don't have meetings where you can talk about the whole of the business from your scope, from your sphere of authority, then those issues are still going to go somewhere. And where do they go? They end up in your email, they end up in hallway conversations, and they end up in the conflict and in the disagreement between everybody. So you have to be committed. You're going to spend that time somewhere. So why not be efficient? Why not be effective and spend less time in really good, well-defined meetings instead of a mom and pop type of disorganized approach that all that does is create confusion. So the commitment has to be at the top. You meet in big chunks of time. Then the middle teams, you don't have to meet as much. If the executives and the managers meet in one very good meeting, then the managers can then go and meet with their individual silos in a less period of time. You don't have to talk for 3 hours. The middle teams can talk for less time. Why? Because you've got a lot of clarity, okay? and then they meet with their teams, and then the teams, the team supervisors, the frontline supervisors with their people, they're probably never really meeting for an hour, okay? They often meet is for 20 minutes a day, and they're talking throughout the day, but they know that they have mini meetings at the beginning of the day, okay, or at the end of the day, and those supervisors are constantly talking to each other. But at least there's an understanding that as you move up the chain of command in the organization has to have places for those decisions to happen, because in the 3 different layers, the speed of business is quite different, so the rhythm of communication has to be different, all right? So, but either way, you can't fight against this setup of meetings, because the executives and the leadership, especially at the top, have to block out easily an hour and a half to 3 hours a week. Doesn't have to be 3 hours in a row, but at least an hour and a half to where they meet and have really, really good decisions. All right, but then the whole purpose of it is to create teamwork. Listen to what he says.
And there's tremendous teamwork at the top of the company, which filters down to tremendous teamwork throughout the company. And teamwork.
All right, so what he means by that is that if you're meeting on a regular basis and the middle team's not meeting on a regular basis, then things are going to break down, okay? Because the communication is not happening, and if the middle team does not commit to having a rhythm of their own going downward, then it's going to break down, because you're not making the lines of communication go all the way to the front lines, to where the teams and the people live and taking care of your customers. And then that same structure has to be present, because that's where all the problems are going to make their way up and identified where they should be handled, okay? But if there is no structure, like you notice, I mean, he clearly said it's got to be from the top all the way down. That means the rhythm structure has to be all the way down, and everybody has to have a place to go to. I regularly go to companies and ask them, do you have a regular meeting on a regular basis where you can go and talk about problems? And I usually hear like, well, it's a very iffy kind of thing. But then what I usually hear is, oh yeah, once a month. Well, that's not enough, because the speed of business moves faster than once a month. So frontline supervisors, you should be meeting with your teams on a daily basis for 15, 20 minutes, find out what the problems are and execute decisions from the top, bring issues up to your next level, encourage your people to talk on a daily basis. But if the structure's not there and the commitment is there to create that teamwork environment of open communication, then things fall apart. All right, and the purpose of teamwork is to create accountability. Listen to how Steve Jobs defines teamwork and accountability.
Is dependent on trusting the other folks. And teamwork is dependent on trusting the other folks to come through with their part without watching them all the time, but trusting that they're going to come through with their parts. And that's what we do really well. And we're great at figuring out.
All right, so notice what he says. That's what we do really well, okay? So in collaboration falls apart. Let's assume the structure's there, but if the accountability's not there, then everything kind of just makes it a waste of time. We're meeting and we're not holding each other accountable. So trust is not, in corporate America, we've redefined it very incorrectly. We usually tend to think teamwork is don't ask questions, just leave me alone, trust me that I'll do my job, okay? But whether it was Ronald Reagan or the Pope, or I don't care who's the one that said it, many people claim it, trust has everything to do with confirming. Was that done, okay? I trust, but I confirm. So what Steve Jobs is clearly saying is that teamwork has to be dependent on everybody agreeing that what you said in one meeting, you're going to follow through and come through when you said you were going to do it. You don't go into a meeting and at the meeting say, okay, yeah, on that issue, I know I was supposed to bring a report, but I didn't get to the report. I'll have it back next week. That is so common. That's not acceptable, okay? If you said in one meeting yes, you have to follow through. And unless you say that it's going to be 2 weeks from now, you have to come through at the next meeting, and the next meeting should probably take place 1 week later. If we're having projects we're moving, the rhythm should be on a weekly basis. So accountability and teamwork go hand in hand. All right, let's pause here because now we have to talk about how do you break up into teams. But before we do that, let's move on to, we're going to have to come back to our second segment. Okay, so go to my website, get this segment from our website, teamworworld.com. You can go to my YouTube channel also and download it from there, or call me at 225-505-2823.